More than 800 million people around the world are affected by extreme poverty and hunger. In sub-Saharan Africa, almost a quarter of the population is undernourished, in spite of government development aid coming from industrialized countries. Private businesses are now getting more and more involved in the fight against poverty.
Responsibility has been shifted from the public sphere into the hands of corporations and the market. The corporations are the new saints, the new paladins of development and food security. You know, we just blow the whistle and they will come in and save us all.
More and more major Western banks and businesses are getting involved in development aid, and they're doing so with government support. In 2015, member states at the UN General Assembly resolved to eliminate extreme poverty and hunger worldwide by 2030 with the help of the private sector. But does this new model of development aid work? Will it really benefit the needy, or does it just serve corporate interests? We take a look at several examples in East Africa, in Kenya, Zambia and Tanzania. We're about to visit a business in the Kenyan capital, Nairobi, that receives support from France's state development aid agency, AFD. Its subsidiary, Kpakol, and other European development banks backed a fund worth 45 million euros. It, in turn, invested 2 million euros in the Nairobi-based business, European Foods Africa. Development banks such as Kpakol were originally set up to fight hunger and poverty, but in this case, state development funds mix with private capital and are being invested with a focus on financial returns.
Actually, in relation to what they just said, it is actually difficult for Africa to catch up with much of the rest of the world, because they are so far ahead and we appear to be so far behind. So for us to be competitive, we have to do things that are more imaginative, more aggressive, and more innovative. We have to look for partnerships. We cannot use the same methods that the West used when they were starting off, because they did not have the kind of competition that we now face. So what I believe we have to do is what we're trying to do here at the EBS is to work with our local government authorities, to work with people at the so-called grassroots at the bottom, to have capacity to be able to look for partnerships outside of Nigeria, and especially in the West, in the advanced economies, in the industrialized countries. We have to get our people to know how to engage them. We cannot do it just from the top, where we drill it down from the top. We have to work it from the bottom. I think that that's really essential. If we're going to be competitive, we have to come up with new methods, innovative methods, be more aggressive, as I've said.
European development banks invest in private companies to improve living conditions, especially in remote rural areas. For example, in Zambia, one of the world's poorest countries, people here have an average life expectancy of just 52. In the northeast of the country, a huge oil palm plantation has been set up. It measures 20,000 hectares in total and also features a mill to obtain oil from the fruits. The operation is run by Zambia's biggest agricultural and food processing company, Zambeef. €35 million were loaned to Zambeef by several development banks in Europe, including the German Investment and Development Corporation DEG, a subsidiary of the KfW Development Bank. Zambeef used some of the money to found a subsidiary, Zampalm.
Zampalm is a project which deals in palm trees to produce palm oil as cooking oil at the moment. Zampam started in late 2008. We had our first nursery in December 2008, of which those are some of the plants that we tried to plant in 2009.
The plantation started off with major problems. A consultant had recommended the wrong type of palm tree. Then it became clear that the soil was too moist for oil palms. The company had the water table lowered by 1.2 metres. The high expenditures for all this preparatory work were made possible by the loan from DEG. Why would DEG invest in such a dubious project?
As we watch this information and these documentaries that people are giving to us, we also have to recognize that sometimes these people may have ulterior motives. The real motive may be to provide markets for their own goods or to stimulate employment growth in their own countries. Sometimes they just said, okay, I'm going to give you a loan, and you use this loan to buy stuff, but to buy stuff from themselves. But we want to be able to get these loans to buy stuff from within Africa. This is something that we have to make sure that our leaders understand, even especially, of course, especially at the grassroots, at the community level. We don't always have to have everything reside at the top of the pyramid. We got to make sure that people understand across board, and especially at the bottom, that they can go out there and have their own partnerships, have their own engagements, where it is profitable for their communities.
We, taxpayers, are paying up front so that the corporations can start making a profit right away and don't have to wait. And I find this absolutely unacceptable.
Before the partnership with Rudolf Bühler, the farmers mainly sold their spices to tourists. That's changed because Bühler agrees a guaranteed price with them in advance.
Before I joined this project, my harvest and my earnings were very low. But now I earn twice as much and can lead a much better life.
In the West, they have what I would call overlapping demand, where they sell the same kinds of goods, they buy the same kinds of goods. The Americans will sell their automobiles to Europe, and Europe will sell their automobiles to the United States. And essentially, the Americans may sell Ford automobiles, sell Cadillacs to Europe, and the Europeans will sell Range Rovers, Jaguars, Mercedes-Benz cars. So this is what I mean by overlapping demand. They're selling and buying similar kinds of merchandise. But with Africa, the West has asymmetrical kinds of demand. They are not overlapping. We sell and buy different kinds of goods because Africa has not been industrially sophisticated enough to be able to sell to the Europeans and to the Americans the same kinds of commodities that they sell to us. So this makes it important that we go and develop markets for the kinds of goods that we sell to them. We got to make sure that there is a market to buy the goods that we provide. And in some cases, we'll just have to add value to our natural resources, even though intermediately. But we have to do that to be competitive. It's extremely important.